Welcome back, everyone. It's another week of the Young and the Rowdies. It's your boy, Patric Young. Always blessed, always thankful to be able to bring this great content to you guys. Thank you so much for subscribing and sharing. If you know a Gator fan, if you know someone that will love sports stories and just journeys of awesome people that have experienced great life lessons and just great journeys through the game of basketball and sport in general, please continue to check out this show. This week's guest is going to be I'm super excited. It's one of my former coaches. He was always just so much energy. He's the reason I understand how defenses work. The reason I became such a great defensive player was his impact on me my freshman year at the University of Florida. He was a assistant coach from Florida from 2004 to 11. The year that we were so close to making it to the Final Four, my freshman year, Butler knocked us out. Shelvin Mack put a 3-ball right in my face. I won't forget that. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our next guest here, Larry Shyatt. How you doing, Coach Shyatt? What's happening?
I am doing great. You look great. It's great to be back in the Gator Nation.
It is great to be back. I see you're rocking the Dallas Mavs tee right there. Looking pretty good on you.
I got to alternate between Florida, Wyoming, the Mavs. Those were my last 3 stops, and all 3 great stops, really interesting stops.
What year was Doncic? This is his 3rd year. So you were there when he got drafted, correct?
Yeah, you know, I was so lucky. I signed a 3-year deal, and then I was offered another 3-year deal. But the NBA just wasn't we can get into that later. It just wasn't right for Mama Shy. If you've been a college head coach's wife, you have the kids over all the time. You bring the dog to practice. You travel on the charter with Papa Shy to the games. And then in the NBA, if you're a wife, literally you're a season ticket holder. And wow. I just didn't think that was fair. But I will tell you what a great run. 42 years in college, 3 in the NBA. Doncic's rookie year, and he actually stayed in our same apartment complex.
Oh, wow.
And Dirk's last year. So I got a great taste at the end of that journey.
Yeah, it sounds like it's like an awesome journey. You said 42 years coaching?
In the college game, only 11 as a head coach. 24 as a very happy and loyal assistant coach. And you know what? A lot of great things in the college game that I do miss still today. But the landscape has really changed, as you well know, Patrick.
Oh, yeah. Goodness gracious. Obviously we're going to backtrack, but just your thoughts on just the current state of what's changed from the transfer portal to now, like that is, would you say it has evened the playing field? And also now the NIL has changed where players can make money off their name, image, and likeness. What is your perspective on these changes that have happened so far?
Well, like all changes, there will be a period of time that's just a period of adjustment, and that's probably likely to go on for the next 3 to 5 years. Many of the changes seem to be very positive, but Generation Y in general is a different group, and they've been treated differently. They've been taught differently, and thus they need to be coached differently. So, the idea that you would either, in all situations, you can flee, you can flow, or you can fight. And that generation, if things aren't going well, they sort of have been geared to just move on and flee. And this is going to affect coaches because how hard you push, how much trust you develop will depend on if somebody is at your place just to audition for 6 months, like Duke or Kentucky has experienced these last 8 years, 9 years, or is there a period where I want to grow? I think of you're a great example. You would be an outlier right now because your numbers weren't great as a rookie. We loved you. We knew you were going to be great, but you were willing to stay the course. You were willing to be part of a process. And I think people need to look now when they're doing their recruiting, even though there's so many changes. Does this person want to be part of us, or does this person just want to come here to audition. And there's a fine line, Patrick.
It's a fine line. It's so interesting because from the coach's aspect, you have your philosophy, your and you don't want to be too rigid because, as you said, every player can't receive coaching the same way. But your principles and your core foundation, you stick to that because some players, they'll come through and it just won't work for them, and that's just probably going to be the way it is. You don't waste the energy. Obviously, send a player on their way if it doesn't work out, but I see it from the perspective of the players as well, because sometimes you'll go to a situation, maybe it was your dream school, and it just didn't work out. Maybe just the system wasn't the right fit or whatever. They ended up recruiting some other guys over you or whatever it may be. You want to get a break or a new fresh start. You're dead on. I don't know. I think every year is going to be a little bit different. I don't think anyone's going to have the exact formula for it. But it's definitely a new, interesting dynamic. I think a lot more coaches are going to go in the transfer portal. We've seen that a lot. Coach White brought in 6 guys out of the transfer, or 4 guys, 5 guys out of the transfer portal this year. And I think Arkansas brought in a lot. Almost everyone in the SEC has brought in a lot. Even Coach Cal went deep in the transfer portal. And I think this is interesting. Yeah, they don't want to put any caveats on the transfer rule, but Shavir Wheeler is leaving Georgia and goes straight to Kentucky. Going to be able to impact.
When that was developed, they could have been in the handshake line after the last game.
Yeah, I know, right? Isn't that wild? So, but it's definitely an interesting landscape. I wonder how much better we could have been if some of the guys that we had to sit out, they were able to play right away coming into that next year. But it all worked out really well. So Coach, Phil, people like, where are you right now?
Well, we're back in South Carolina, about 30 miles north of Clemson and maybe 40 miles south of Asheville, right in the mountains on Lake Kiowee. What's interesting is when we won the championship out west, cut the nets down in Vegas with Larry Nance and crew, it was at that point, and I had told Pam, look, if we leave now, maybe we'll get in the Hall of Fame here at Wyoming. But I said, I know how this works. If we stay a couple more years, because we had 5 more years on our contract, but if we stay, they're not going to love Papa Shy quite like they love him now. And so with that said, Pam, I said, look, we've been together 44 years at that time. I said, sweetheart, go pick out wherever you feel we need to be. I never even saw the home, but all 3 of my boys went to Clemson, graduated from Clemson. 2 of them played for me for a year. And so we felt like this was a perfect look. Really, we'll leave here wherever we are and pass away here and be able to pass this on to the 3 kids, because this is really where they call home.
What a blessing. How are your father to Jeremy, Jeffrey, and Philip? The boys, I got to know Jeremy a little bit when he was here with Coach Driscoll at UNF. How are the boys doing?
They're all doing great. They, as many people experienced, they had a rough time during the pandemic, and all 3 at some point lost their jobs. And thank God we're all blessed. They all got better ones now. But Jeremy's in Charlotte. He's got 2 of our little grandbabies, a little young lady and a little boy. Jeff is in Charleston, South Carolina, with his wife and 2 grandbabies for us. And then Philip's up in Asheville. So everybody's somewhat close. We're just far enough that we don't do their laundry anymore, but it's a great feeling. And I got to tell you, everybody brags on their grandkids, and I love them to death. But I think watching these 2 boys become fathers is even more exciting, because boy, I could remember those early Halloween days when they were not the daddies.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's really cool how that comes full circle. I was actually in North Carolina 3 weekends ago. I was in Highlands, North Carolina. It's beautiful. The mountains there.
This is a great part of the country, and we loved it. You've got 3 seasons. You've got a nice short fall. You've got a long spring and summer, And then you have just a very tiny winter. In fact, we spent 10 years coaching at Clemson, both an assistant and a head coach. And we saw snow come down 2 times in 10 years, but it never landed long.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely loved the colors, as well as the ability to like be so close to nature and just the hiking. My girlfriend and I, we were going through Glen Falls. It was a trail, and we did Whiteside Mountain a few days before that, and there was a lot of people. It's very well mapped out. There's some really good kind of infrastructure steps, and every now and then that you walk through there. Then we go do Glen Falls, and there, I mean, at Whiteside there was a lot of people. I mean, we were running into people all the time. At Glen Falls, we saw a few people at the beginning, and after that, we were just on our own, walking through a lot of water and whatnot. And we walked for about an hour or so. And then at one point we're going up and then we start hearing some noise. And we're like, she's like, babe, is that a human sound? I said, I don't think so. She said, let's get out of here.
But we're here in the mountains. And I got to tell you, we're on several acres here. We've had bears and bear cubs in our backyard. We've had coyotes. We often have deer in the front and backyard. I mean, we're out here amongst them, but we love it. You know, you've been in the fast lane for 45 years of coaching. Some of my friends think we're nuts because we're out here 25 minutes from the nearest grocery store, but we love it. And the people up here have been wonderful. So after all these years, it's sort of payback time. I think Pam's getting a little tired of me. I sort of missed the college game. I don't know if the NBA was my fit, but this has been great. It's been a year and a half. I stepped away from the coaching at the Mavs literally 5 months before this virus hit. Wow. So if we had to be somewhere, we're sort of blessed to be out here where we were able to sort of be on our own, take hikes, jump on the boat when we wanted to, but at least do some things that were healthy.
That's awesome. So, Coach, I'm ready to dive in. Ready to dive in on just the story of where you started, how you got into basketball. You know, obviously to the point now, because you've you've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different coaching positions. I would say
this young lady had 14 homes until now. So, and this is definitely our last. We'll lay our heads down on this one at the end. But you know what? I started very early. I was always the smallest guy in the team in high school.
Wooster.
All city player in Cleveland. Went to a little school, College of Worcester. We had a great run. I met my wife of now 44 years. So we had 46 years. We had a great run there. And I decided later in my college career, I wanted to coach. The people that I dramatically respected the most were coaches. They weren't the wealthiest. In those days, a high school coach made the same as a college coach because, you know, TV hadn't entered the picture and shoe companies and those endorsements. And so you really had to decide, do you want to teach and be a high school coach but have your summers off? Or do you want to be a college coach, recruit in the off season, but not have to teach? Those were the two decisions. So I immediately went into coaching, got my master's at the University of Akron, and then it was a lot of different runs. We got married. We took our Volkswagen Rabbit and our dog from Cleveland, Ohio to the University of Utah with Jerry Pym for 6 months. And then I got my first full-time coaching job back home where we were from at Cleveland State University. You know what? We had a great run there. 2 first-round draft choices from Cleveland State, Darren Tillis, Frankie Edwards. And that's where I probably got some I's dotted where people started to recognize, boy, either this guy can recruit or he's gotten lucky. It was probably a combination of both. I joined Gary Colson, one of the greatest offensive coaches I've ever been with at New Mexico, right after the biggest scandal in the history of college sports. Norm Ellenberger had gotten some major difficulties with the University of New Mexico, and I joined Gary for 6 years out west. We averaged 22 and a half wins a year. We had a great run there. And then I left and joined Rick Barnes in the wild Big East. In the Big East that you would have fit in perfect because there was a fight every night, Patrick. And those fights weren't just for rebounds either, my friend. But a great run with Matombo, Morning, Coleman, you name it. We had a wonderful 6 years there. Won the only Big East championship that Providence had ever had, 94. And then Billy Bob Barnes, Rick Barnes, decided we were going to leave and go to the South, where we'd never been, to this place called Clemson. And my kids fell in love with it. We fell in love with it. We had 3 years. Now, Patrick, Papa Shy had been an assistant coach 24 years. And I finally got my first head coaching job at the University of Wyoming. We had a Cinderella year. We got lucky. We won a lot of games. I think it was 19-8 or something like that.
97, 98.
Yes. And Rick Barnes shocked everybody. Called me one night, 11 p.m., goes, Shy, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm in the hot tub with my 3 boys. He said, I'm getting on a plane at midnight. I'm taking the Texas job tomorrow. What? And he said, Shy, you got 48 hours. If you want to come back, they want you to come back and be the head coach.
Wow.
I knew Wyoming was a better, and it is a better basketball job. It really is. It's the only, I don't know if you know this, Wyoming's the only state in America that only has 1 4-year university. So, wow. I mean, they worship their Cowboys. But anyways, I went back, served as head coach 5 years. I got to tell you this, one of the toughest, most embarrassing, demeaning feelings is to be fired, especially in the ACC. It's the mecca of basketball. It always has been and probably likely always will be. But sometimes, as you've always read and heard about, in your darkest moments, some wonderful things happen. And that's when Billy D called. Fortunately, 2 of my best friends were 2 of his best friends, Jeff Van Gundy and Herbie Sendek. And they said, Billy, you need to hire Shy. He'd be a perfect fit. And the rest is history. Patrick, I got to be honest, I never thought I'd leave Billy. I loved him and still do, and his family. And those were precious years. But when my best friend, or one of my best friends, was the AD at Wyoming, he called. I knew before our game that I was going to go back. I just didn't want to say anything. And God, I would have loved to have gone to the Final Four with you, and we should have been there. But I went back to Wyoming. We had sort of an axe to grind. I had left quickly. I wanted to come back and see if we could repay him tenfold. And boy, we got lucky, and we really did. A lot of people have asked, Patrick, your highest moments. The 2 national championships are priceless at Florida. But I got to be honest, my greatest moment in basketball was hugging my wife after we shocked everybody and cut the nets down in Vegas at Wyoming and won the Mountain West, the first ever Mountain West championship at Wyoming, with 5 seniors, all of whom graduated, and then a special senior, Larry Nance Jr., who about 2 months later would be a first-round draft choice. For an older coach, it's like the beer commercial. It doesn't get any better than that. Yeah.
And then, that was 2015. Who'd you end up beating in the championship?
We beat San Diego State, who was the premier school at that time. And we beat them 44-42. You actually would have loved that encounter. And then obviously went to the NCAA and had a great run. It was a year later. I promised one of our young men who was MVP of the tournament, Josh Adams, who I think would have left Wyoming if I would have chosen to leave then. I said, I'll stay for your senior year, but that's it. And I gave away, I know Mama Shy is not happy about it. I gave away a lot of money. I had 5 more years on my contract, but it was time. And she bought this place. And wouldn't you know, about 2 weeks after she bought it, that was when I got a call from Rick Carlisle. He said, Shyatt, you know, I had gotten my assistants a 5-year contract so that they were all safe. And I stepped away, and he goes, Shy, nobody does that. What you did, you deserve to come with me and Cuban. You'll love the NBA. And so I jumped into it. I had no regrets. It's something was always intrigued about, but I was sort of a fish out of water. I wasn't a great fit. I think I always
completely different style, you know.
There's some similarities and differences if you ever want to get my take, but honestly, I really missed. I thought your impact was so far greater in college. These are 18, 19-year-old young men. You're teaching time management, how to deal with a young lady, how to prepare for the game of life. Beyond just special situations and
more than just being a coach, you're being a man maker and mentor in that sense as well.
And in the NBA, these guys are fathers, they're husbands. They've already been through much of what we just said. You know, like I said, a little later, if you want to, we can talk about maybe 1 or 2 or 3 similarities and differences of the 2 levels. But I miss the college.
I mean, you go ahead. I mean, it's fresh in your mind. Might as well go ahead and dive into it. Because I know Coach Grant. I know Coach Grant had a similar when he left Alabama and went to Oklahoma City with Coach Donovan. Just that the aspect is just so different, and still learning a lot, but just wasn't. I don't know if it was extremely fulfilling for him and what he had been used to for so long in the college realm. So yeah, I would love your insight and what you've noticed through your experience.
Sure. And real quick, you know, Donnie Jones and Anthony are still 2 of my dearest friends. I did fly up for about a week to Dayton to just observe and then visit with their staff and their team, their Cinderella year. And boy, were they good. Well, some similarities, first of all, locker rooms at the high school, college, and pro level are all the same now. Yeah. In the old days, the college locker room was where you had soap fights, fist fights, dirty jokes, talked about the coaches. But the one common denominator was a lot of communication. And now if you go into a high school, college, or pro locker room, they're all one and the same. Everybody's got their headphones on. They're listening to my stuff, using their thumbs, my followers. It's all me, me, me. And if you think about it, that's completely opposite of what a coach's job is. We're there to bring the we out of the me. So that's a tough piece. The next similarity is that the greatest players, the Dirk Nowitzkis, the Dončićs, they want to be pushed. The very best, I think I had 23 first round and second round players over the course of those years. The very best college players and the very best NBA players, they all want to be pushed for different reasons, but they want to be pushed to their max. And then I think the last comparison would be press conferences. I listen to a lot of press conferences, college and pros. I can really plug my ears or close my eyes. I can tell you every cliche that's going to be used because everybody says the same thing. You know, we're going to run and stun. We're going to shoot threes, no twos. We're going to pick the pace up, tempo, open the floor. Well, guess what? There's a lot of different ways to win in college. Thank God. In the NBA, there's only one way to play, and all 30 teams play the same way. Let's get into some opposites. You know, first of all, the game in the NBA is completely different, the game, because of the 2.9 rule. See, in college, we can play a zone and we can keep Joakim Noah, Patric Young, or Larry Nance Jr. at the dotted line, the whole possession, and you're poison. We can play any tempo we want, and we can force somebody else to. We can play a straight zone. We can play 4 guys in man and 1 Patric Young roaming the dotted line. You can't do that in the NBA. They say they play zone. They don't play zone. They have to match up out of it. They have to touch and get out of the lane every 2.9. And so there's a reason. It's in the world of entertainment. They have to get these great offensive players, dribble lines to the rim. They have to get people scoring 40. They have to get triple doubles. But I got to tell you, I miss the college game because people are winning different ways. Virginia might win a little slower and ugly like we did out west.
Yeah.
Syracuse might win with a 2-3 zone every and all games. And Shaka and some other people, Huggins may win with pressing after makes or misses. But the common denominator in the college game, they do play different. Another difference is refereeing. Like in the college game, if you post up or if a guard posts up, they're not going to let anybody touch or push you. One hand, two hand, automatic fouls, a lot of fouls inside. On the other hand, they let you bump a little bit at the guards in college. Completely opposite in the NBA because they have, for entertainment purposes, they have to get more scoring. They're not going to allow you to touch LeBron or any of these great offensive players out front because they want them to wheel and deal. On the other hand, watch LeBron James the next time he tries to post at 8 feet. He's going to end up 20 feet when he catches it because they don't want the ball there. They don't want play stopped. They don't want fouls inside because they don't want the ball going inside. Those are two completely opposite dynamics in terms of the refereeing. And the last one,
so far away,
this may surprise you, my friend. The last one hurt the most for me. You know, I bitched for 45 years the pressure of college coaching. You got to win every game, every night.
Oh,
you got to win every night. Let me tell you something. The more you win in college, logically, the better your recruiting class could be.
Yes.
Guess what? The NBA, the more you lose, the better shot you got at a good player. 8 to 10 teams a year have to. It killed me, but I understood it. It's a business. They have to lose. They have to continue to lose from February till the end of the year because it only makes sense. The worse you do, the better guy or guys you can get. And I got to be honest with you. That broke every core I was ever taught. It killed me. So therefore, be careful what you wish for because
I know, right?
This guy missed the pressure to win.
Gosh, yeah, that is so true. Because when Sam Presti, not Sam Presti, who was the guy over at with Philly that he got fired? That trust the process. That they were just losing for 4 straight seasons, and then it hasn't equated to a championship. But look, they're competitive now. They're very competitive. They're top 3 in the East every year. But at what for the fans, for the morale, like you just accept. We're just gonna accept losing. We're just. What are we stepping out here for? What, I want to compete and win. But I get it. If you're thinking long term, getting that better player. That's kind of the way. But I love how it's like a kind of a drawing at the end of the top 10 worst teams, the top 8 worst teams. It's not just straightforward that the team that does the worst is automatically going to get rewarded. There's still some luck in that, but
they have provided some momentum and a little bit of impetus in terms of percentages to get the higher picks and the tournament at the end of the year. Now that they've added a couple of ball clubs, and they're trying. But I got to tell you, when internally I'm being told in my own mind we got to lose 17 of our last 20 games. I mean, it sounded crazy, but these young analytic guys in the Dallas office that I would meet with in the afternoons when all the players and many of the coaches had left, they tuned me in. They said, look, Papa Shy, this is how it is. And if you really want, you need to be prepared many times to have 2-3 seasons of really disappointing losing seasons to build to try to win it all. Patrick, there's been books made, Good to Great. It always killed me because the nicest compliment when I was a young kid of an older person who passed away was, boy, what a good man, what a good woman. And now, unless it's great, like Charles Barkley's always saying, no, unless you have a ring, I'm not buying. Being good is good, and better is better. But this idea that the ring is the only choice of the day, I've never bought. To me, we only had one sign up all those years at Wyoming because we were the underdogs. It's not an easy place to recruit when it's minus 35 for about 6 months. But we had one sign up that said, hard work and intellect will defeat talent when talent doesn't show. And I would tell them, hey, guys, I don't care what the sport is. A lot of times, talent doesn't show. Or the Yankees would win every year. Or the Celtics and the Lakers would win every year.
Every year.
Or Kentucky and Duke, with all these one and dones the last decade, would win every game. And it doesn't always work that way. You show me a man or a woman that works their tail off. You show me a man or a woman with a high intellect, they got a shot.
Before we move on, let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up with Bet Rivers yet, now is the time because they are offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one play through to turn your bonus into cash money. With their new Rush Pay Instant Approval, withdrawing your winnings is safer, more secure, and more reliable. With basketball season tipping off, get in on the action by going to betrivers.com today or by downloading the BetRivers iOS app. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
And I would always tell those guys, like the movie Dumb and Dumber, so you're saying we got a chance? Yeah, we got a chance.
You're so right. Just on every aspect. That's awesome. That's the only sign that you had up.
That's it.
Because it's, how, you can, the most talented person is going to need, like, your talent alone is not enough, especially nowadays. Everyone's talented, but who has, and not only just the work and the intellect, but how you treat people along the way, the relationships. I've heard many of the stories, like you look at Udonis Haslem. Not only has he been a good player, but his relationships and his influence and the way that he's treated people has helped him to stay in the league. Is he still is? Obviously, he's in his 21st season or whatever it may be. So obviously he's not, but because he planted those roots and those seeds with his hard work. Because I remember there was a story. I hope to get him on here to tell about it. I think he had came back to try out for the Heat or something like that. And he's just like diving out of bounds and just doing all this kind of crazy stuff. And then Pat Riley's just like, yeah, we're keeping this guy just because that it wasn't about time. And that's not, whenever I get a chance to talk to kids, I'm like, if this ball is loose on the ground, does it take any talent for any of you guys just to go dive on it? Or if this rebounds up there, does it take you any, is that about talent or is that just about how bad you want it? It just takes this. I mean, you preached this to us. This is my first understanding of white line defense, of being disciplined. And the white line was our center. It didn't matter about talent at that point. Does it help? Does, having all these intangible things help? Absolutely. But being in the right position, showing to the ball, boxing out, being in the right help, that's the intellect, that's playing smart. And that's another thing that makes LeBron James so special. Yes, he's super talented, but he is so smart. He studies the game. And, definitely it was so bad, Coach, after I left Florida. And then I went on to the NBA for a little bit. First off, adjusting to, and ladies and gentlemen, when he says like the 2.9 rule, he's talking about there's the defensive 3 seconds. There's an offensive and a defensive 3 seconds in the NBA that's not in college basketball. As he was saying, I could just load up the paint. I could just stand there on defense and wouldn't have to worry about anything. In the NBA, you have to get both feet out. And they call it a 2-9. You got this mental clock in your mind of 1, 2, out, back in. Or as the big guy, if somebody's coming through, you tag him, you touch him, and then that clock, that 2.9, there's that 3 second, it restarts. But going from having those systems in place, and then I went overseas to Europe, and my first year in Turkey, and we were terrible. First off, we were so bad. We were so bad. We didn't have any system in place. I come there mid-season, and my coach, he's Turkish, and he actually just won the EuroLeague. So he's the coach of Anadolu Efes now, the team in Istanbul, Turkey. And we just didn't have, I was just like, what am I doing out here? Like, do you want me to show hard on the screen, stay back? Where's the rotations? Who's tagging it? Like, there was just no structure. And I'm just like, if a coach doesn't set his team up to success, the players got no chance. Of course, you can be talented, but if you don't know, that's why it's so important, you know, players being able to buy into that system. But if the coach doesn't have a system at all, you're just out there just hoping, playing some street ball pretty much. But it was just really interesting from going from all that structure and seeing like and being used to that, because we're doing drills every day. You know, we're doing white line drills, we're doing shell drills just to like make sure we know. And then I go to, all right, just, you know, we're just gonna try to score more points than the other team. Interesting dynamic there, Coach, for sure.
Well, I'm sure it was different, but you know, there's something to be said. Look, I would always work with our guys in the summer and in the fall. And I would say before we could, I'm sort of a Coach Knight disciple in this regard. He wrote a book about maybe 10 years ago, the power of negativity. And it sounds crazy, but I got to be honest. I wanted my team to make sure at Wyoming, we knew what a loser sounds like, what a loser looks like, and what a loser acts like. And I would constantly, we kept it on the board. The players came up with 15, 18 traits. Wow. And I said, I want to make sure we know what goes into losing before we can talk about winning a championship or what goes into success. And then that way, when chaos, and chaos is coming for all of us during the season, when it comes, and it will come, hopefully we'll know what it looks like, what it sounds like, what we act like, and then how we can try to deter it. And so we spent the whole summer, we kept it on the board, but I think that's a very important tool. Awesome. Because of what you said earlier. You got to know before you can plan on winning and tell your guys how to win, you got to know what goes into losing first.
That's awesome. I never thought about that, because that's like I think the people that, I guess, I don't know if they're at the Treasury, that are able to spot and identify false currency or counterfeits.
Right.
You know, they don't, but it's interesting. It reminds me of that. But they actually study the real thing so much. They don't worry about looking at the counterfeits. But to that same principle, you know, we all kind of see the results and the fruit of winning, and everyone knows it. But no, let's make it so we consciously know what a loser looks like, and what can be a, you know, John Gordon, an energy vampire, someone that's all about themselves, bad attitude, at the effort level's not there, pointing the finger. I don't know, what were are there any of the things on that list that just like pop out in the mind right now? That's a really awesome, awesome. And then there's accountability. There's accountability to that too, which is so good.
The one thing over the length of my journey coaching with my wife, I remember telling my kids, because it was devastating to be fired at Clemson. And you thought everyone's looking at you. Everybody knows this. You're a loser. But the one common denominator was always, and I think it started with my mom and dad making sure we understood right and wrong. And I never wanted Pam or my 3 boys to ever be in the Hall of Shame, knowing that I probably would never be in the Hall of Fame. I've got some dear friends, Patrick. They're very wealthy. They made a lot of money because of coaching in college and coaching in the NBA. I don't have to tell you that there's a lot there. But if you sell what it is your heart and your mind tell you for the sake of just the W or the record. Uh, it's not in the end, for us at least, going to be what I wanted for my kids and my wife. Like, I was really worried about that. And as I said, some of my dearest friends right now, they may have more wealth, but I got to tell you, they've entered the Hall of Shame with what it is that they did and or are doing now. And that's still a killer. I said earlier, I miss the college game. I'd love, at my age, I couldn't take over a program again now and put the energy and the effort 24/7. But I would still like I've got a dear friend, Trent he was the coach at LSU just before you played. Trent Johnson, as Billy used to say, a man's man. He stood for all the right things. He lost his job at LSU, but I'll tell you, it's a quick story. He just got a phone call about 2 months ago. One of his former ADs called and said, Trent, I need you on an airplane in 24 hours. We just fired Mark Gottfried. We need somebody for 7-8 months to just do right by the kids, to coach them up, and we'll find a full-time coach a year from now. And I called him that day and said, you know what? You have to know what you can really do, what you're about, and you have to know what you can't. And I couldn't do the other, but now that's something, God forbid one of these morons gets caught doing the wrong thing. Yeah. And somebody says, I need somebody for 7 or 8 months to just make sure I do right by the kids. I do right at the press conferences, and I send them on their way the right way. That's something that, I think I would be able to do without flipping and flopping on culture.
Yeah. You just said, that's what I love so much about doing this podcast. And you just dive into so many great things to think of in relation to life. Just being rooted in your principles and not winning is, I don't believe when Vince Lombardi said it's everything. It's not everything. It's the only thing. At what cost? At what cost? 100%. To the relationships, to your friends, your family, the respect of everyone else. What's the most? You're not taking any of your wins or your losses or your rings or with you. The most important thing in life.
Patrick, here's one for you that, in my mind, people don't know this, and God, they would have killed me when I was coaching at Clemson if I said it, but I was a Duke Carolina fanatic early in my career because in my world, they did all the right things. They got many of the best players in the country, many and most of the best young men in the country, and always were 24-5, always with a heartbeat to win a championship, whether they did or not, always. And it killed me. It was like a dagger in the back when it appeared 7-8 years ago that Duke would say, look, I see what Calipari's doing, and I'm going to do that. I think they've taken something crazy, like 45 one-and-dones in the last 7, whatever it is. And that part killed me because in my world, they did everything right. Guys graduated, guys loved the university, loved the student body, won big. If they won it all, I don't know. And for me personally, that set a tone for me. And now you're grabbing guys, and they know it's a 6-month or 5-month investment, September to March. And that's really not my love of the college game. I get why, just like I said, I understand why we do what we do in the NBA, but that part wasn't for me.
Yeah, it is difficult because, and like you said, if talent was everything, why change what was working? Of course, no one is going to, that John Wooden level of 10, appearance. I don't know if anyone's ever going to do that again. That, what he did at UCLA. But if it was all about the one and dones, then Kentucky would win every single year. Right. And last year they had their worst season since like 1925 or something like that. So you're absolutely right. You look at Duke and it's just like these outstanding young men, just everyone's shaved, everyone's working hard, stay there for a long time. You know, everyone graduates. Why compromise those principles? Because Coach K was able to build the program to a point where it's like, hey, he probably doesn't have to sweat, you know, trying to worry about his recruiting class. So, and now with the transfer portal, you know, I don't think a coach or anyone should have to change their core values and what their philosophy in order to. Do you need to sometimes make a little pivot to make sure and just maybe use a different wording? Because some people are more sensitive or some people need more harder coaching, but to the core of what you believe as a coach and your philosophy, stick with it. And not every player is for you and not every coach is for each player, but that's okay. You know, at the end of the day, I'd rather look back and have an okay career knowing that I stayed the path and I didn't cheat, you know, or in my career. And to have those, you know, for everyone to know my reputation is like, Patric was consistent. Coach Shyatt was consistent. He loved us. He showed up every day. I know that he wanted my best for me. And even though if it doesn't work out, there was no bad blood in between that. He wished me the best. And you know, because you never know what those connections, like the fact that, you know, I had you for 1 year, but we had I loved, was it your idea with the charge drill? Was that your drill?
Well, I don't know if it was my drill, but I did love the fact that if we can show early energy every day and we can apply it to the games, because I was taught in an era that the games are really just an informal practice. And we don't need to wear new elbow pads or knee guards or headbands. Whatever we looked like at practice, that's what we should look like in the game.
Yeah.
Forget the fact that there's people going crazy. That's what we're there for. And so that was some of the madness there. But you hit home. You know, in your case, there was a process. You were there because you wanted to learn more. You want to prepare the game of basketball. You wanted to prepare for the game of life. And many and most of the best programs for many years, that was part of the process. Maybe you wouldn't get it all as a rookie, but you'd get it later as a sophomore, junior. On the occasion when there was a super duper ridiculous talent, they went immediately to the NBA as an 18, 19-year-old. Moses Malone and Garnett and LeBron and Dirk. Those guys never played college ball, but the ones that played college ball, they grew, they developed their personality and their goals and their inner culture. And then last but not least, many and most of them stayed long enough to get very close to a degree. Yeah. And that's what it was about. That's what it still will be about. You're going to get this split at some point. You know, football's not going to share this ridiculous amount of money at some point. Like, they're not going to be able to do that. They're going to split away. And when that happens, maybe, just maybe, the love of the game again will exceed the love of money, and the mid to low majors and the D2s and the D3s sort of will come together. And that's what college basketball will look like. I hope, because I hope there's an innocence there that I still love.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so, because it just seems as though it's gone from one spectrum of being able to do nothing that kind of had the field a little bit kind of level to an extent, and now it's that players can make money, and that because I'm working for another company here, a tech company, and our concern or our thoughts were just like the NIL might be divisive in the locker room, and more of that my followers type thing that you were talking about in the locker room, and that can somehow trickle over to how players play, how they relate to each other in the locker room. And you would just hate to see money driving away real relationships and just those teams. Like, I don't know if you'll ever see a team like what I had my senior year of just 4 guys that went through it all 4 years and really just loved each other, truly just were there for the love of each other and our commitment to the program and the system and our love for the college experience. I hope, and to be able to make it to a Final Four, you know, because there's going to be teams, I guess, of guys that do stay together, But as far as being able to make it, and really enjoy the experience and everyone graduate, I really hope so, because it's just special. Once you already know, once you leave college, whether a coach or especially as a player, it's just so different. It's truly, truly a business.
Yeah,
it is.
You hit it on the nose, and really, that's why I said, our greatest moment was with that championship group out west. 5 seniors all graduated that year. Larry gets drafted in the first round. We cut the nets down in Vegas at a school like Wyoming, who wins a championship about once every, 30 years. And for me personally, for an older coach, it was just what you're describing. It was what college basketball was and still is supposed to be.
Right.
But these new rules, these new changes, this new landscape will all work out down the road. It's just, there's going to be this period of, I don't know how it's going to work yet, but everybody will figure it out.
Yeah, it's like you said, we're in that period of transition. I don't know if it might take a year or two. We'll see. We'll see how it goes for the schools to figure it out. But along your journey before you became an assistant coach, when did you know, like, I'm ready? Like, when were you like, I'm ready to lead and be the guy in charge? Was there a moment that it kind of clicked for you when you felt like you absorbed enough and you were ready to lead the charge and how you were going to do it? Because you even in relationships, you might be dating, or you're thinking about dating some, or you have friends and you see and you look at their relationships and you're like, I want that. I don't want that thing. I want to add up to figure out what my relationship will be one day. And then, obviously going through the coaching journey, there's things that you will pick up from coaches you worked with and worked for. How were you able to figure out your philosophy? And then when did you know that you were ready to step up and take that position?
Well, I thought earlier than my 24 years as being an assistant, I had a numerous interviews, and almost all ended after the first or second, or if they flew Pam and I to their university in front of different committees in those days. And it would be, you know what, everything looks perfect, everything sounds perfect, but Shy, we got to be honest with you. You've never been a head coach, and you want to sit there and say, look, man, until somebody offers me one, I'm not going to be a head coach.
Right.
but it finally did happen. And I think each time I was with a different coach, I wasn't with that many, but, Ray Derringer for 6 years, then Gary Colson for 6 years, then Rick Barnes for 9 years. Each time, because I'm learning something a little different, I thought I was a little readier. I got to be honest with you, though, being a head coach, and when I finally did get the offer at the University of Wyoming in the old WAC, I will tell you this. I thought I was absolutely ready. Practice, recruiting, public speaking, fundraising, everything except the game. Because as an assistant coach, you're sitting next to the head coach. You might cuss or might get excited every once in a while, but you're not running the show. And all of a sudden, I'm the head coach of Wyoming. And then when 9 months later, I'm the head coach in the ACC. And all of a sudden, do I stand or sit? Do I keep my coat on or not? Do I watch Gary Williams and Coach K, or do I not pay attention? Do I listen or watch the refs, or do I not pay attention? Do I call all the out of bounds plays, all the substitutions? And so there were so many different dynamics that took a little time. And honestly, I thought I was a way better coach after being with Billy D for those 6 years, returning to Wyoming, in my late 50s. And at that point, here's what we're going to try to do. We're the underdogs. We play at, I don't know if you know this, the Wyoming court's the highest court in America. We're 7,300 feet above sea level, almost a mile and a half. So there was an advantage there. People got on me early. Coach, are you going to press? You have to press here. You have to take advantage of elevation. And I said, look, there's 2 ways to tire a player and a coach on the opposing team. If I make them guard 20 more seconds than they want every possession, they're not going to like me. They're not going to like my team. And then they get real tired. And so we chose that because we thought it gave us, with who we had and the San Diego State's, UNLV, and New Mexico's in our league and the talent they had, we thought that gave us the best chance. It wasn't necessarily like I wanted to play. I would have rather play like Billy D did, Billy ball back and forth. But we weren't going to have Brewer, Noah, Horford, and those two magnificent guards, Torian Green and Lee Humphrey, who could knock it in. We didn't have that, and we weren't going to out-talent those other people. So I always thought the sign of a really good coach was, did he evaluate his own guys, and did he evaluate who he's playing against? Did he give his team the best shot to win each night, even if it meant changing a little bit, because this will give us the best shot to win. And I had to talk my guys into, because we didn't play an overly appealing way to play out west. But I got to tell you, it was effective for who we had and who we were fighting.
That's what you have to do as a coach. It's not that you probably didn't want to and think about it, but it's like, hey, that's not the best for the roster I have, for the role, for their strengths. And it's a good thing you were like, there's other ways. Nobody wants the guard. I remember when we had Virginia. I think it was my sophomore year in the tournament, and Coach Donovan just had us made sure we were guarding for 35 seconds. And if we made a mistake, he will make us just stand there in the defensive position for 35 seconds. Just you got to squat and oh man, I hated that practice, but it prepared us for a game where you have to be mentally locked in for 35 and then get the rebound. Because guess what? If you don't, you got another 35.
Yeah. My guys would remind the opponents in the league, pregame, hey guys, I don't think you're going to get your points and your touches. I don't think you're going to get that tonight. And hey guys, you better get ready to guard, because we're going east and west until the first person makes a mistake. And hopefully it's not going to be us. And they finally got excited about it, which, like I said, sometimes it's hard, but boy, in the end, when we were celebrating,
you got to be patient. So don't want to hold you for too much longer, but definitely wanted to ask you about when Coach Donovan did call you, what was that, and just your time at Florida? Coach, did you know of him before? Obviously, you knew of him, but had you had any other interaction with Coach before he called you about coming over to help him out at Florida?
Well, I actually had. We talked a little bit when he was he had just got the Florida job, and I was at Clemson. But it went back to when I coached at Providence. I missed Billy D by 1 year, so we had a little bit of overlap there. And then when I got to tell you this, I was thinking about going back to Virginia with Pete Gillen. When I got fired at Clemson, I stayed out of coaching for 9 months because my youngest son, Philip, was a senior in high school, and I didn't have the heart to move him at that point. That was tough living in that little town. Yeah. But it's okay. So I was going to go with Petey, and I got a call from Billy D. I'm sitting on my pool deck in Clemson. Billy D calls. I've already told you, because Herbie Sendek and Jeff Van Gundy had sort of encouraged him to call me. And Jeremy, my oldest son, who was a GA at South Carolina at the time for Dave Odom, says, Dad, that's Billy Donovan. You better take that job.
Yeah.
Like that. And so I told Coach, I said, Coach, here's the only hesitation I have. You guys are winning 20, 21, 22 games every year. I'm scared I'll mess it up for you. And I said, here's the deal. I'll fly and spend a couple days with you, but Anthony Grant and Donnie Jones have to bless it. They have to feel like this would be a good marriage. Yeah. And I want $1 less no matter what than they're making, because that's how I want to fit in. And boy, it ended up, what a blessing. And, what a great run. My first day on the job, Patrick, in June of that year, in walks 4 freshmen: Green, Brewer, Noah, and Horford. Are you shitting me? My wife and Christine could have coached those guys. I mean, come on. And so, two of them played really well as rookies. Horford and Brewer. Brewer started the whole year. Horford only started half the year. But Green and Noah did not play nearly as much as they wanted. Noah had mono and didn't play much. And Green was behind ropes and had about 15 turnovers of practice. Wow. So it took a while, but they stayed the course, and you know the rest.
Joe Kim couldn't even get to class on time. That's what I heard.
Well, he didn't get there all the time. But, one common denominator, they were all from great families. Yeah. They were all from sports knowledgeable families, and they actually were all way above students, above. Those guys were A- students that probably ended up with 3.0s, but could have been even higher. You'd see a paper once in a while, and I'd be amazed. And then they were really blessed. They were both articulate, and they were both, actually all four of them were really good students.
And just good people. I mean, just good kids. I mean, and still men to this day. Definitely getting a chance to see connect with Torian Green. Now he's player development with the Chicago Bulls. So super excited for him over there. But Coach Shy, this has been an honor. I could definitely chat with you forever. You got so much wisdom. It's been a blessing. I'm thankful for the year that I had with you. I send my family your regards. Everyone's doing well. I'm super jealous that you're in South Carolina. It's awesome. So beautiful. I'm here. Florida's nice too. We still got some sun, but it's been an honor having you on today. And what else you got planned for the rest of today?
Well, today we have Pam's relatives coming. They've never been to our little place here at our lake house. So they're coming Wednesday. So it's chores the next 48 hours, because I know she's going to want this place looking spotless. But I'll get out. Tell your dad, he'd be very proud. I get out. I golf alone. I don't have the
golf alone.
This will surprise you, but I have no patience. Gee, that's a surprise. And so I can't stand playing golf for 4.5 hours, watching the people in front of me measure putts and all that nonsense. So I wait until the afternoon when we live in the cliffs at the vineyards. There's 7 different cliff courses. They're beautiful. And I'll wait. Most of these people like to get up early and play. I'll play in the afternoons alone. I can knock it off in 2.5 hours. And you know what? Like I told you before, I competed every day of my life for 45 years. I don't really want to compete on a golf course. I just want to enjoy it.
Oh, really?
Okay, I'm not great, but tell Pops if he ever wants to take a drive up, I need to come down there and see one of my former coaches, Matt Driscoll, at North Florida one of these days. Tell Pops he needs to drive up here. It's not a bad drive, and we'll play till his heart's content.
I actually have I'm covering Kentucky and UNF in Rupp Arena, which I'm super excited about. And I love the way you play golf. I hate slow. I hate being out there for forever. Just I hate having to wait for the next guy. Let me just go. I don't want to be out there all day. I want to play, have some good time, have a drink here and there, and then get home and just be frustrated about how bad I am.
Well, that sounds familiar too. But you know what? This has been great. As I said, I miss the college game. If I could ever help somebody in a small assistant or consultant role, maybe that was during the year, but not in the summer, would be wonderful. But I can't lie to you. This young lady was with me at my side for 45 years. I owe her this kind of time. And it's sort of fun being close enough to our grandkids to see them grow up too.
Absolutely. You'd be excellent at television. I
did that one year in my off. My wife was always so worried that I wouldn't press the buzzer right and my language would get messed up. So I stayed away from that.
Well, I think if that does circle around, I think you would be fantastic. You're such a good orator and just you know the game so well. But anyways, Coach, I got a jet. This was a pleasure. I sent Will you get your phone number. He should be getting in touch with you pretty soon. Everyone, this was Larry Shyatt, the one and only. Great man, great coach, great person up in South Carolina, winner of a bunch of championships and all that good stuff. Man, for everyone, continue to share this podcast, and don't forget to stay rowdy.